One of the first signs that a man is secretly obsessed with you, even if he would never admit it, is how closely he watches you. Not in a way that feels obvious, not in a way that draws attention, but in a quiet, steady way that most people overlook. Because when a man is deeply interested, when his mind keeps coming back to you, his attention follows you, even when his words don't. You might catch him looking at you when he thinks you're not paying attention. Maybe it's just for a second before he looks away, like nothing happened. Maybe he acts normal the moment you notice him. But those small glances mean something, because a man doesn't watch what doesn't matter to him. His eyes naturally go where his thoughts already are. And the interesting thing is, he may never admit how much he notices. On the surface, he might seem relaxed, casual, even a little distant. He might talk to you like it's no big deal, like you're just another person in the room. But underneath that calm behavior is a level of attention that goes deeper than he lets on. He notices the little changes. He notices when something about you is different, even if nobody else points it out. He might recognize when your mood shifts before you say a word. He might notice when you're quieter than usual or when you're more energetic than normal. These are things people only pick up on when they're paying real attention. And it's not something he forces. It happens naturally. Because when a man's mind keeps returning to you, his awareness sharpens without him even trying. Details that might seem small to you become meaningful to him. He remembers the way you said something, the way you reacted to a joke, the way your expression changed during a conversation. Even moments you think passed unnoticed stay with him longer than you realize. Sometimes his attention shows up in unexpected ways. He might bring up something you mentioned days or weeks ago, something you barely remember saying. He might refer back to a moment that felt ordinary to you but clearly stayed in his mind. And when that happens, it reveals something important. He was listening more closely than he ever let on. But because he's trying to hide how much he feels, he keeps that attention subtle. He doesn't want to appear too invested. He doesn't want to look like he's watching too closely. So instead of obvious gestures, his interest shows through quiet observation. You might feel it without being able to explain it. That sense that he's aware of you even when he isn't speaking. That sense that he notices more than he says. Because when a man is secretly drawn to you, his focus keeps finding its way back to you no matter how normal he tries to act. And while he may hide his words and guard his emotions, his attention always tells the truth. Because a man always watches what he can't stop thinking about. Another clear sign that a man is secretly obsessed with you, even while trying to hide it, is the way he finds reasons to stay connected. He may not come out and say that he wants to talk to you all the time. He may not openly admit that he looks forward to hearing from you. But if you pay attention, you'll notice that he keeps creating small opportunities to keep the conversation going. It might start with something simple, a message that doesn't really need to be sent, a question he could have figured out on his own, a casual check-in that seems ordinary on the surface. But underneath that simplicity is intention. Because when a man keeps reaching out in small ways, it usually means he's looking for a reason to stay close without making his feelings obvious. Sometimes he'll continue a conversation long after the main topic is finished. The original reason for talking disappears, but somehow the conversation keeps moving. One subject leads to another, and before you know it, time has passed and you're still talking. It doesn't feel forced, but it also doesn't feel accidental. That's often a man trying to stay connected without admitting that staying connected is what he really wants. You might notice that he responds quickly, even when he tries to sound casual. He may act relaxed, but his actions show readiness. It's like he's already paying attention before you even say anything. And when the conversation slows down, he often finds a way to revive it. Another question, another comment, another reason to keep the connection alive. And the interesting thing is he may disguise it as coincidence. He might say something reminded him of you. He might share a random thought or bring up a small detail from earlier. On the surface, it feels spontaneous. But when it happens again and again, you start realizing it's not random at all. It's effort wearing the mask of casualness. Because a man who is secretly drawn to you wants access to you. He wants to stay present in your world, even if he never says it directly. So instead of making big emotional statements, he chooses smaller paths. He keeps the door open. He keeps communication alive in ways that don't feel overwhelming or obvious. Sometimes he'll disappear for a short time, trying to keep his distance, trying to stay in control of what he feels. But then he shows up again as if pulled back by something he can't quite ignore. The connection resumes, often as naturally as before, and it's clear that he never really stepped away in the first place. And the consistency of that return tells a story words never do. Because when someone doesn't care, conversations fade easily. There's no effort to continue them. There's no need to keep the connection alive. But when a man keeps finding his way back into conversation, when he keeps creating moments to talk, it reveals something deeper than casual interest. It shows that staying connected matters to him more than he's willing to admit. Because a man will always find a reason to talk to the woman he can't get off his mind. And sometimes the strongest sign that a man is secretly obsessed with you is not what he shows. It's what he tries to hide. Because when a man feels deeply but doesn't want those feelings to be obvious, he often goes out of his way to act like nothing is happening at all. On the surface, he looks calm. He looks steady. He looks like he's completely in control. But underneath that calm exterior, there's a quiet effort to keep his emotions from showing too clearly. You might notice that he tries to act unbothered around you. He speaks casually, like everything is normal. He keeps his tone even, his reactions measured, like he doesn't want to reveal too much. If someone were looking from the outside, they might assume he feels nothing special. But when you pay closer attention, there's a tension between how he acts and how present he always seems to be. Because a man who truly doesn't care doesn't need to pretend. But a man who feels something strong often tries to manage how much of that feeling shows. He doesn't want to appear vulnerable. He doesn't want to look too eager. He doesn't want to give away how often you cross his mind. So instead of leaning forward emotionally, he holds himself back. He keeps his distance just enough to feel safe, even while his attention stays locked in. Sometimes he might even seem slightly distant at moments when you expect him to be warmer. Not cold, not uninterested. Just controlled, like he's choosing his reactions carefully, like he's making sure he doesn't reveal more than he intends. That restraint often comes from the fact that he feels more than he's comfortable showing. You may notice small contradictions in his behavior. He might act relaxed one moment and then unusually attentive the next. He might pretend something doesn't matter while his actions quietly show that it does. He might tease you or joke around instead of saying something sincere, using humor as a shield for feelings he doesn't want to put into words. And sometimes he'll downplay things that clearly meant something to him. He'll brush off moments that lingered in his mind. He'll pretend not to notice things he obviously noticed. Not because he's being dishonest, but because admitting how much he feels might make him feel exposed. Because when a man is secretly drawn to you, part of him wants to move closer and another part of him wants to stay protected. So he balances himself in the middle. He keeps showing up, keeps paying attention, keeps staying connected, but he does it in a way that looks controlled instead of emotional. He wants to be near you without revealing how much that nearness matters. And sometimes that effort to look unaffected becomes a sign all by itself, because real indifference is effortless. A man who truly feels nothing doesn't need to manage his behavior. He doesn't need to hold anything back. He simply lives his life without thinking twice. But a man who is secretly obsessed has to stay aware of himself. He has to keep his reactions measured. He has to make sure his feelings don't show too clearly. And the more he tries to look unbothered, the more it reveals how much he really is. Another sign that a man may be secretly obsessed with you, even while trying to keep it hidden, is the quiet way he becomes protective. Not in a loud or controlling way, not in a way that demands attention, but in a steady and subtle way that shows he cares more than he says. Because when a man is deeply invested, your well-being starts to matter to him in a personal way, even if he never announces it. You might notice that he checks on you in ways that seem small at first. He might ask if you got home safely. He might notice when you seem tired or stressed and ask if everything is all right. Sometimes the questions sound casual, almost like passing conversation, but the consistency behind them tells a deeper story. He isn't just making small talk. He's paying attention to how you are doing. And what makes it different is the way it feels intentional. He notices when something is off before you even explain it. He might sense when your mood changes or when something is bothering you. And even if he doesn't push for details, he makes it clear that he's aware. That kind of awareness doesn't come from surface level interest. It comes from someone who is emotionally tuned in. Sometimes his protectiveness shows through actions instead of words. He may position himself in ways that make sure you're comfortable or safe without drawing attention to it. He may offer help before you ask. He may step in quietly when something feels inconvenient or difficult for you. None of it looks dramatic, but it happens often enough that you start noticing a pattern. Because a man who is secretly attached often shows his feelings through responsibility rather than declarations. He might not tell you how much he cares, but he'll show concern in moments that matter. He might remind you to take care of yourself. He might notice when you're overwhelmed and try to lighten the situation in small ways. He might keep an eye on things that affect you, even when nobody expects him to. And the interesting part is that he may try to make it look normal. He may act like he'd do the same for anyone, even when his actions clearly show a different level of attention. He downplays it because he doesn't want his feelings to look obvious. But genuine concern has a way of standing out, no matter how quietly it's expressed. Sometimes his protectiveness even shows in the way he reacts to situations around you. He may become more alert when something feels uncomfortable for you. He may speak up when he senses that something isn't right. He may show a seriousness in those moments that reveals how much he values your well-being. And what makes this kind of protectiveness meaningful is that it comes without being asked. It isn't about recognition or praise. It's simply a natural response to someone who has become important to him. Because when a man feels deeply connected, he doesn't just want to be near you. He wants to know that you're okay. And a man who quietly protects you is often feeling more than he's willing to say. Another powerful sign that a man is secretly obsessed with you, even while trying to keep it hidden, is the way he remembers the smallest things about you. Not just the big moments, not just the obvious details, but the little pieces of conversation and the passing comments that most people would forget by the next day. When a man's mind keeps returning to you, those details settle in deeper than he ever intended. You might casually mention something once, a favorite food, a place you want to visit, a story from your past, and weeks later, he brings it up like it mattered. Sometimes you won't even remember saying it yourself, but he does. And when that happens, it tells you something important. He wasn't just hearing you. He was listening with real attention, because people remember what holds their interest. He may recall the way you described something or repeat a phrase you used in a conversation long ago. He might surprise you by noticing patterns in your preferences, the small habits that make you who you are. Maybe he remembers how you take your coffee, or the kind of music you said you liked. Maybe he remembers a story about your family or something that made you laugh. These things stay with him because you stay with him. And the interesting part is, he often doesn't realize how revealing that memory can be. He may bring something up naturally, like it's no big deal, not realizing that most people wouldn't have held on to that detail. To him, it feels normal, but to you, it stands out, because remembering the small things requires a level of attention that goes beyond casual interest. Sometimes it shows up in quiet ways. He might ask about something you mentioned before, following up without making a big deal out of it. He might check whether something important to you worked out the way you hoped. He might notice when you get something new or change something about your routine. And each time it happens, it reveals how closely he's been paying attention. Because when a man is secretly drawn to you, your words carry weight in his mind. Conversations don't just pass by, they stay with him. Moments that felt ordinary to you become meaningful memories for him. And what makes this even more telling is that he often remembers emotional details. He remembers what made you happy. He remembers what bothered you. He remembers the tone of your voice when something mattered to you. Those impressions stay with him because he connects your experiences to how he feels about you. He may never come out and say that he thinks about you often. He may never admit how present you are in his thoughts. But memory has a way of revealing what the heart holds on to. Because when someone barely matters, their words fade quickly. Their stories blur together with everything else. There's no reason for the mind to hold on. But when a man keeps remembering the smallest things you said, it usually means you've been living in his thoughts longer than he ever planned. Because a man never forgets the details about the woman who stays on his mind. Sometimes the clearest sign that a man is secretly obsessed with you is how he reacts when he thinks he might lose you. A man who isn't invested will let distance happen without much resistance. He won't question it, he won't notice it deeply, and he certainly won't change his behavior because of it. But a man who is emotionally tied to you, even if he's hiding it, responds differently. The moment you pull back just a little, he feels the shift. And even if he doesn't admit it out loud, his actions start telling the story. You might notice that when you stop reaching out first, suddenly he finds a reason to contact you. Maybe he sends a simple message that says, "Hey, just checking on you," or he reacts to something you posted. It may seem small on the surface, but understand something. Men don't move without a reason. If he keeps finding ways to reconnect after you create space, it means your absence has weight in his life. A man who is secretly obsessed pays attention to your presence more than he lets on. When that presence disappears even slightly, it creates discomfort for him. He may not say, "I miss you," but he might start conversations that feel random or unnecessary. He might bring up old memories or inside jokes just to reopen that connection. That's not accidental. That's emotional investment trying to stay alive. Sometimes he might even become a little restless. His timing changes. He responds faster than usual. He asks more questions than he used to. It's almost like he's trying to measure where he stands with you without directly asking. That's because deep down, he cares more than he's willing to admit. You'll also notice that he becomes more present when he does talk to you. A man who is hiding feelings often keeps his guard up, but when he senses distance, that guard slips a little. He listens more carefully. He remembers small details. He tries harder to keep the conversation going, not because he suddenly changed overnight, but because the possibility of losing you makes his true feelings rise to the surface. And here's the important part. He might never confess this openly. Some men struggle with vulnerability. Some men fear rejection. Some men simply don't know how to express what they feel. So instead of words, they show it through effort. Effort is always the loudest proof of hidden emotion. If a man can go weeks or months without noticing your absence, that tells you something. But if your silence makes him step forward, that tells you something even louder. His reaction to distance reveals what his words try to hide. Because a man who isn't thinking about you won't chase your presence, but a man who can't forget you will always find his way back. Watch what he does when you step back, because that's where the truth shows itself.